And what you want to do with this is we're going to be working on dividing polynomials primarily here. Okay, so there's really two major things that we learn in this section. The first thing is going to be when we divide a polynomial by a monomial. Okay, and I've kind of written down a lot of things on this handout so you don't have to keep writing the same thing over and over again. So what I want to do first of all is I want to show you two ways to do this first problem right here. Okay, and what we're going to do with this is if you did like order of operations, like if you just added these numbers together, I think you'd have 15 and 25 is 40, 40 plus 35 is 75, 75 minus 20 is 55. Okay, you could use a calculator to do that, of course. So that's 55 divided by 11, or 55 divided by 5 is 11, I mean. Okay, and then that would be the answer. Okay, and then that's the logical way to do that problem is do the numerator and then divide. It turns out, though, it also works if you just break this up into four fractions. You can say 15 over 5 plus 25 over 5 plus 35 over 5 minus 20 over 5. Let's see if we get 11 if we do this. Okay, 15 divided by 5 is 3. 25 divided by 5 is 5. 35 divided by 5 is 7. And 20 divided by 5 would be 4. So if you add that up, that looks like 8 plus 7 is 15. 15 minus 4 is 11. Okay, so I'm just proving to you that it works. Okay, because when we do the algebra problems, that's what we're going to do, is we're going to break the fraction up into parts and simplify using things that we've already learned how to do. Okay, does that make sense to start with? Okay, all right, so we're going to look at several algebra problems that are like this. Now, I've kind of went through and typed out the first step so you don't have to keep rewriting it over the time. So again, I'm just breaking this fraction up into four parts. Does that first step make sense to everybody? Okay, just break it up. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to do each one of these fractions separately. You want to get to a point where you can do most of this in your head so you don't have to write stuff out, okay? Now, I'm going to write this one out only on a couple of these, not on all of them, but I'm going to show you how to do it in your head anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the x to the fourth as x times x times x times x. Sometimes students need to see this a couple of times before they understand how a shortcut works. Then the next one is 16x times x times x over 4 times x. And then the next one is 20x squared is x times x over 4 times x. And then the last one is 32 times x over 4x. Now, all I'm doing by doing that is I'm just going to show you the shortcut that I'm going to go over why it works. So if you were to go through and do this, of course, what's 12 over 4? 3. What happens to the x's? One of them cancels, right? Leaving how many? 3. So you'd say x to the third. Now see, you only write that out if you have to. There's going to be times when you forget rules in algebra, so you have to have a strategy to figure that out. All I look at is this, real easy. Okay, I just get students to answer these questions. Which part of the fraction has more x's, top or bottom? Top. How many more does it have? 3. That's it. That's all you're doing, okay? So the next one would be the same thing. You would have 16 over 4 is 4. One of the x's cross out, so you'd have x the second. And it's the same thing. If you look at x the third over x, which part of the fraction has more? Top does, and it has 2 more. Does that make sense? That's how you reason that out, say. Then the next one, you'd have 20 over 4 is 5. One of the x's crosses out, leaving you an x. And then the last one, both of the x's divide out because it's 1. And then 32 over 4 would be 8 like that. So that would be the answer to the problem. Okay? So we're going to do several problems like this. There's actually a lot of little different things that can happen, but that's a standard example right there. Okay, does that make sense? Okay to everybody? A lot of these problems you will be able to do in your head. Really, all you got to do is just divide it up, and then you can do the rest in your head if you want to. Okay, yes?
Are you just wanting us to get to that step? You don't want us to go further?
No, you don't have to. All you got to do is, and I really don't even mind on your homework, if you can do any of these in your head, I'm fine with you just writing the answer. But probably really all you need to do as a minimum is just write how you broke it up. You don't have to write the x's out unless you feel like you need to. The reason I'm showing that is there's times when students forget the shortcuts on this, and if you write it out, that'll help you remember that, see, okay? Okay, so let's do number 2. Now, see, I've already done the first step for you. I've done that because I don't want you to spend all your time having to write that out. And then this time, let's just do this in our head. Okay, what would be 14x to the 4th over 2x to the 3rd? 7x, good. 14 divided by 2 is 7. There's one more x in the top, so you just have an x left over. Okay, how about the next one? What's that? 5, good. Okay, the x to the 3rds are the same, so they divide out. 10 divided by 2 is 5. The next one is the one where students tend to mess up on. Okay, we know 14 over 2 is 7. Okay, but look at it this way. Which part of the fraction has more x's this time? The bottom. How many more are on the bottom? There's one more, so it should be 7 over x. Okay, it goes like that. There's 2 ways you can approach this part of the problem. If you have to, you could certainly write that out 3 times in the bottom, and it's pretty clear if you do that you got 1 left over in the bottom, right? Okay. Another approach that you can do, see, on all these problems you can subtract the exponents. You got 4 minus 3 is 1. Even on this you have 3 minus 3 is x to the 0, but anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay. And then this one you could go, if you do 2 minus 3, you get x to the negative 1. And we haven't really looked at negative exponents before in this class. We'll get to that. So the idea would be a negative exponent is just the same as 1 over that number to the positive exponent, like that. Probably the best way for you guys to get this down at this level is just to talk out and answer those questions like I said. Which part of the fraction has more x's? Bottom. How many more on the bottom? 1. Okay, if you do it that way, you'll understand it. Then you just do it in your head. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Okay, so let's do a couple more, then I'll put you to work on a few things here. Just want to kind of do a little bit of everything that can happen. So I've already written the first step out for you. Your goal is to do this in your head. What's the result of the first fraction? 3r to the 5th, right. There are 6 more r's on the top. There's only 1 r on the bottom. Okay, what's the answer to the second one? 5r to the 2nd, good. Okay, there's 2 more r's on the top than there is the bottom. That should be really logical to you. That kind of helps you understand the y part of this. Okay, now the next one, see, you got to be careful now when you have these negatives. So I divide it up like this. First of all, what's 12 divided by negative 4? It's negative 3. What happens to the x's? Cancel out, so that's just negative 3. All right, now notice on this one, you got to be careful. See, you have subtracting a negative. You have 2 negatives, so that's going to make that addition. You're subtracting a negative number, so that's going to become addition. And then 20 divided by 4 is 5. Now here's the one that you got to be careful about. Which part of the fraction has more x's? Bottom. How many more?
2.
So what's on the bottom is what?
X squared.
X squared. There you go. Okay, like that. That's how you do it. Most of these things you're just going to do in your head. Okay, usually students do very well with these problems. Okay, let me go through a couple of more. I think it's the last one, number 6, that I'll have to kind of show you a few things on. But the rest of them pretty straightforward. So this one, again, I've already broken it up for you. And not all of you will need to do that. I think I've got a misprint on here too, I'm seeing. See how that says 1624? That should just be a 24, I think. Okay, that just kind of got stuck. I think it came from the first 16, like that. Okay. Okay, now try to do the first one in your head. What's the first one going to be in your head?
X to the 3rd, 140.
Right, 2. 16 divided by 8 is 2. There's 3 more x's in the top, so that's x to the 3rd. There's 4 more y's in the top, so that's y to the 4th. Okay, the next one, you got 24 divided by 8 is 3. And then how do the variables go? X, y, good. Okay, there's 1 more x on the top, so that's just x to the 1st or x, and there's 1 more y on the top, so you have that. Okay, the next one, you got 48 divided by 8 is 6. And anything else? No, because they cancel out. Problem done. Okay, is that easy for everybody? Okay, if you think of it the right way, it should be. The next one's the one that's tricky. because there's background issues that students always have on these problems a lot. So what I want you to do is just kind of decide. I want you to write down a couple of things. Before I go through this problem, it's important that I talk to you a little bit about negative exponents. So I'm going to use not x, but I'm going to use numbers. Okay, let's start with 2. We're going to do 2 to the 0, 2 to the first, 2 to the second, 2 to the third. I want you to write those down in a column. Then we're going to go 2 to the negative 1, 2 to the negative 2, 2 to the negative 3. I'm going to give you a very, very quick refresher on negative exponents. Where you've probably seen negative exponents is in scientific notation, like if you have times 10 to a negative power or something like that. Now, these things follow a very logical pattern. So first of all, if we were to do 2 to the third, 2 to the third just means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. 2 to the second is 2 times 2, so that's 4. And then 2 to the first is just 2. Now see, those numbers right there are following a pattern. That's what I want you to see. They are doubling, aren't they? 2, 4, 8, so what's going to come next? 16, 32, and so forth. Now if you go backwards, they're being cut in half. So see, that would be 8 to 4, 4 to 2, so what do you predict it would go there?
0.
Not 0.
1.
1, because what are you doing? You're cutting that number in half. Okay? 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. Okay, there's a pattern, and this is kind of how we figured out, or at least this is one method that mathematicians use to figure this out. If you go back several hundred years, people thought 2 to the 0, nonsense. 2 to the negative 1, nonsense. It's not nonsense. Okay, we use it all the time. We use it all the time in science. So what do you think 2 to the negative 1 would be? It would be half of 1, which is what? 1/2. Good. Okay. Now what do you think the next one would be? I'm just seeing if you see the pattern. Good. 1/4. Then the next one. Okay. That's how they go. So what you want to get out of this is when you do a negative exponent, okay, 2 to the negative 3, a lot of times students think it's a negative 8. It's not a negative answer. It's a small positive number. So what you do is you write 1 over 2 to the positive 3. Then you work it out to get 1 over 8. So another example, like if you had 2 to the negative 6, you say 1 over 2 to the positive 6. Then you work 2 to the 6th out, which I think is 64. Does that make sense? Okay. Now that's something that a lot of you maybe have not seen, or maybe it's been a long time since you have seen that. So what I'm going to do on this number 6 is I'm going to show you one way to do this. And this is probably the easiest way to learn how to do this, like this. Now I want you to just write down the negative 20 and 2. Let's not do anything with that yet. Now, here's what you do. It's pretty abstract on here. If you ask the question, which part of the fraction has more x's, it's a little hard to tell on that because they're negative numbers now. So what I'm going to suggest that you learn how to do is if you have x to the negative 6, you can bring it to the bottom and then its exponent becomes positive. Okay? And by the same logic, if you take the negative 10 to the top, its exponent becomes positive. Okay? That is the way that exponents work. Anytime you move them across the bar, they change sign. Okay? Well, it doesn't matter. What we're going to do is the negative 20 and 2, we're going to divide that and get negative 10. When we're working with the x's, the best way to do this is to rearrange them so you have positive exponents. Then we can reason it out in our head real easily. Okay? And then the next one, we're going to just leave the 6 and 2. We're going to leave x to the 8. The reason I'm leaving that is because it's already positive. Okay? Now, by the same logic, what I'm going to do is bring that to the top. So I'm going to have x to the 10th like that. Okay, so what you need to learn how to do, and I know this is kind of abstract, but it's a very fundamental principle that we do with exponents. The idea is if you have x to the negative something, that's just 1 over x to the positive n. Okay, that's what I just did. Okay, when I did x to the negative 6, I brought it to the bottom. That's a fundamental property. And then if your negative exponent starts in the bottom, well, you bring it to the top. Okay, that's the way numbers work. That's the way exponents work. It's just you cross the fraction bar, what happens to the sign of the exponent? It changes. So that's the idea. Now you're ready to finish it up. It's easy to finish it up. So what we're going to do with this first one is, of course, you would have negative 10, and then how would the x's end up? x to the fourth. There's 4 more x's in the top, so that's x to the fourth. Okay, then the next one, you have 6 divided by 2 is 3. How would the exponents end up? X to the 18th. Good. Nothing cancels out. It's just a total of 8 x's and 10 x's, so that's x to the 18th. So what you've learned probably in the past is you subtract exponents. If it's a fraction, you do 10 minus 6 is 4. If it's multiplication, you do 8 plus 10 is 18. There's your answer. So that's the one that sometimes bothers students because of the background issues. A lot of you maybe hadn't done much with negative exponents before. Okay, so you got to see the pattern. I hope that those powers of 2 help you see the pattern, because that's how they work. Okay, negative exponents are small numbers, fractions, small numbers. Okay, okay, so I'll put you to work on a few of these. We're going to go the next 4, and that should kind of give you a handle. Now you can. I've already done the first step for you. So on 7 through 10, you can just write the answer if you want to. Okay, I'm okay with that. This one is going to be 5x to the second. There's 2 more x's on the top of the fraction. The second one is going to be plus 4. The x's divide out. And some of you, I could tell, were a little puzzled about this one still. You have 26 over 6 is 4. But you have 2 more x's in the bottom. Okay, now suppose that you got stuck, and I could tell some of you were stuck on that. What you would want to do, it takes time, but you would just write the x's out. Okay, it kind of takes time to write all that stuff out, but what you would see on that is 1, 2, 3, 4 of them cross out, you got 2 left in the bottom. That's all that means. Does that make sense? So write it out if you need to, okay? All right, now the next problem, what you would have is, that looks like that would be 4x to the third. Now you have a negative here, so you're adding a negative number, so you wanted to change that sign to minus. Make sure you got your signs right. Then this would be 6x to the second. Okay, what's the sign going to be on the next one? Yeah, positive, because see, you're subtracting a negative. So you have a positive 3, the x to the fifths are the same, so they cross out. Next one's the same way. Got a positive, 24 divided by 6 is 4, and what's left over? X squared in the bottom. Okay, you guys understand why it's left in the bottom? Okay, write it out like I said if you have to. Okay, so that would be the answer. The next one, it looks like you would have 4x to the third, y to the fourth, and then the next fraction would be 2x, y. You don't have to have x to the first, y to the first, but there's one more left over. Okay, some of you are a little puzzled on this one. What's the last one? 4/5. Okay, that's what's left. They cancel, and 4/5 is just a fraction that's already reduced. So that's your answer. Okay, all right, everybody do okay with that? Okay, now the next one is the one that I recommend you do the problem this way. I think you'll do better if you do it this way. Is you have a negative exponent, just take it to the bottom. Okay, take that to the bottom. You have a negative exponent in the bottom, what do you do with it? Bring it to the top. That's really what that problem means. Okay, then the next one you're going to have 16 over 4. Take the negative 6 to the bottom. Now the exponent becomes positive. Negative 10 to the top. You have that. Now if you just do that, you're going to do fine because you're doing what you just got through doing. So the answer should be negative 10, x to the 8th on that, and then this would be 4x to the 4th, since there's 4 more x's on the top of the fraction. Okay, does that look okay? The negative exponent thing is kind of abstract, so it is kind of hard to understand, I think, but that's the way it works out. That's the way exponents work. Okay? All right, any questions with what you just did? Okay, all right. Now we're going to go to long division. A lot of students just kind of grumble when they hear the word long division because they have bad memories from elementary school. Actually, in elementary school, one of the reasons why students have trouble with long division is probably the most complicated thing that you learn. It's an algorithm that has several steps in it, and that's kind of hard for kids when you have a math problem that has many steps in it. So what I'm going to do is together we're going to do long division. And the reason I'm going to do an arithmetic problem is because you won't understand the algebra problem unless you understand how to do an arithmetic problem. And it's very common for college students to get in a class like this and they haven't done any division in 10 years, 20 years, whatever years. Okay? So here's what you do first of all is the algorithm goes divide, multiply, subtract, bring down the next number. Okay? I even saw this stupid thing on the internet. Does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers? Which is a way to remember that. Okay, the internet's full of stuff. And it mostly comes from elementary school teachers that are clever with kids and stuff. Okay, so I just think divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Over and over and over again. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do 12 divided by 4, and we record the 3. Okay, then we do 3 times 4. You don't have to write these steps. You just fill in the problem. So that's 12. Then what we do is we do the subtraction. So that's 0. Then we bring down the next number. That is one loop through the problem. That's the same thing over and over and over and over again. Okay, now we're ready to go back to step 1 and divide again. So we do 4 divided by 4, which is 1. So we put the 1 there. Then we multiply. 1 times 4 is 4. Then we subtract, and we get 0. Then what do? Bring down the next number. Okay, then we start over again. Now, if we do 5 divided by 4, that goes in 1 time, and it's got something left over, right? It doesn't matter. You're going to figure that out anyway. So now to multiply. 1 times 4 is 4. Step 3 is subtract. So you have a 1. Bring down the 3 and start over again. So now you're going to do 13 divided by 4, which is 3, is the closest number you'll find. 3 times 4 is 12. Subtract, you have a remainder of 1. Okay, one thing that happens too is a lot of times international students who are in America for the first time, they didn't learn how to divide this way. Does that describe anybody in this class? I don't really think so, but it's very common to have students, man, I didn't learn how to divide that way. They learned a way different way, so it's hard for them to learn the algebra. Okay, so we're going to do the algebra the same way. A couple of things I want to remind you of is, first of all, how would you check to see if this answer is right? You do this. You do the answer times 4, right? And if you do that, that would be 12. That would be 5, 4, 12, like that. Then what do you do with the remainder? You add it on. Okay, so that would give 12,453. When we do algebra, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to check that way. Okay? The other thing I want to remind you of is typically you learn to write this one of two ways. You either write your answer as 3,113 remainder of 1. What's the other way you learned? 1/4. Good. So you say 3,113 and 1/4. Because there's one part left over with the 4. So we're going to do that with algebra too, okay, as well. Okay? So the algebra that I'm going to teach you next, which is what we do in the rest of the section, is going to depend totally on how well you can process that technique. So we're going to go on to the algebra. Number 12, we're going to look at algebra now. And a lot of times students see this as different, and it's not different. You can do this all in your head if you want to. You can do it all in your head if you want to. So it's just going to be divide, multiply, subtract, bring down the next number. Those are the steps we're going to go through. I am going to write the steps at the side because a lot of students need to see that. First thing you do is you look at this number and you look at that number. You don't look at the 8. That's what you're going to divide. So what you're going to do is 11x to the second divided by x. And if you think about it, that's what you just got through doing, right? That's why I taught it to you. So what is the result of 11x squared over x? 11x, right? There's one more x in the top, so we record that 11x like that, okay? That's the division step. Don't look at the 8. Now, when you multiply, step 2, you're going to take 11x, and you're going to multiply it by the whole thing, x minus 8. And that's a distributive property, right? So you are doing a distributive property. You take this times the whole thing. So what does that give? 11x squared minus 88x. Okay, write it down. Okay, now I would recommend that you put a plus 11x squared minus 88x like that. So we've done 2 steps. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. Now step 3 is to subtract. Now, here you got 2 ways you could do this. You could do you're really doing 11x squared minus 11x squared, which is 0. And then really you're doing negative 90x subtract negative 88x. You're doing negative 90 subtract negative 88. How do you handle that subtract a negative thing? You add. Okay, now this is the way I teach it. You don't have to do this if you don't like this. I teach students on step 3, change the signs and add. Okay, that's just my technique. And then I say circle the sign change so that you realize that it was plus and minus. Now it's minus and plus. Okay, that's going to cancel. And then the next thing is going to be negative 90 plus 88. What we're doing is that is going to be negative 2x. Okay, so we got that. Okay? You can do it in your head too. What are you doing? You're doing negative 90 minus minus 80. So isn't that the same thing? Subtracting a negative is adding. Okay, you can do it in your head if you want to. What's step 4? Bring down the next number. Okay, so we've done one loop through the problem. One loop. Okay, what do you guys think so far? Some of you are shaking your head no. I get that all the time when I teach this. This is only my first example though. You'll get it. Okay, now I'm going to start over again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is this divided by this. We're going to take that number divided by x. So step 1, you're going to do negative 2x divided by x. Don't do anything with the 8, just do that. So what's negative 2x divided by x? Negative 2, because the x is crossed out. So we'll record that like that. Okay? Step 2 is to multiply. You're going to do negative 2 times x minus 8 and just record it. So that's going to be negative 2x plus 16. All right, so we write it down. And you don't have to write this stuff at the side. Some students do better if they do this, that when they're learning it, your ultimate goal is just to process it all within the problem. Okay? Step 3 is you subtract. What would happen if you subtracted the same numbers? 16 minus 16, for instance, is what? 0. Negative 2x subtract negative 2x is 0. Again, what I try to teach you to do, and you don't have to do this if you don't want to, is just change those signs and then add. Okay? Because that's what subtraction is, by the way. It's adding the opposite of the number. So that goes to 0, that goes to 0, then we're done because there's no more numbers to write down. So what we would have as our answer is we would say the quotient is 11x minus 2, and then the remainder is whatever's left over like that. Okay? Does that make any sense?
I don't get why negative 2x and negative 2x.
Well, what I did is I'm subtracting. I'm doing negative 2x subtract negative 2x. Because remember, step 3 is you subtract this number. When you're doing arithmetic, you never see the minus minus thing. That's why it's weird. So isn't that just negative 2x plus x plus 2x? So it goes to 0. That's why. Okay, now one thing you guys are going to notice on this, seriously, is this first column will always cancel out. If it doesn't, you're screwing up. Okay, and the second one may not, so it goes like that. Okay, how do you think you would check the answer on this? Let's do that on a couple of problems, not all of them. On next week's test, I'll give you extra credit if you can check this. You do 11x minus 2, and you multiply it by x minus 8. And that's a FOIL problem, right? So that's what you're going to do. You always take the answer times the divisor. So go ahead and do that and see if it takes you to the original. So that's 11x squared minus 88x minus 2x and plus 16. Okay, so if you add those like terms together, you're going to get 11x squared minus 90x plus 16. So isn't that where you started? Indeed it is. Okay, it matches the original. So you can tell you're right on these problems every single time. Okay, by basic algebra. Okay? Okay, let's move on. If that kind of didn't go too well, we'll keep working on it. I'll do a couple of more just to kind of before, and then I'll let you just try and see how you do. And this will be something you're going to do in college algebra. I mean, you need to know this for college algebra. You're expected to already know how to do this, okay? All right, step 1. We're going to do the 3 steps like this. First step is division. Now, when you do division, look at the first term under the symbol and the first term out of the symbol, and just those 2 things. So we're going to do 20x to the third divided by negative 5x. What is the result of that? Good. Negative 4x to the second. So that's going to go there. Okay, that's step 1. Okay. Step 2 is to multiply. So we're going to do negative 4x to the second times negative 5x plus 4. Okay, and I'm going to do that in my head, and I'm just going to write the result. So this is going to be 20x to the third. Do you see how it matches? If it doesn't, you screwed up in the previous step. Okay, it's self-checking. Okay, now you're going to do negative 4x squared times 4, which is negative 16x to the second. Okay, so that's done. Divide, multiply. Now the subtraction thing, what you're doing on subtraction is you're doing 20 minus 20, and you're doing negative 36 minus negative 16. I can tell that's what some of you are confused on. So what I teach students to do is just change the signs. 20 minus 20 is going to cancel, right? Change the sign. Change this to plus. Why do I change it to plus? Because I'm subtracting a negative. Okay? Subtracting a negative is adding. So negative 36 plus 16 is going to be negative 20 x to the second. Okay? Change the signs and add. That's what you do on step 3. Change signs and add. Okay? Next step is bring down the next number. Okay, so we're done with that. We're ready to start over again. Okay? So I'm going to erase my scratch work here, and we're going to start over again. This time I'm going to do negative 20x squared divided by negative 5x. That's the division step. So negative 20x to the second divided by negative 5x, what is that? 4x, and it's a positive too. It's important that you get positive 4x, so you need to put a plus 4x there. Got to have a sign. Yeah.
I get a question. So negative 36x plus 16, or x squared plus 16x squared, why wouldn't that be negative 20?
It is.
Well, you put negative 20x squared. That's wouldn't the x's cancel each
other? No, because what you're doing is you're combining like terms.
Oh, you're not subtracting.
You're thinking that you're thinking of dividing.
Yeah.
That's why you're thinking that. So that's just like terms. The x squared stay the same. Okay. Okay, so we got 4x. Now we're going to do 4x times negative 5x plus 4. So you always just take that times whatever you're dividing by. Do that in your head. See, this is negative 20x squared. See how that matches? It better, or you're messing up. Then the next one is plus 16x like that. Okay, so we've done the multiplication. All right, what am I trying to get you to do on subtraction? Change the signs and add, because that's what subtraction is. Students usually do better if they do that. That's just my thinking anyway. So anyway, that goes to 0. 31 subtract 16 is, what's that, 15? So that would be a 15x, like that. Then you're ready to bring down the next number. And then we need to do one last loop. Okay? So one more time we got to do it. All right, this time what you're going to do is 15x divided by negative 5x. So what's 15x divided by negative 5x? Negative 3. Okay, we got that. Now you're ready to multiply. So you're going to go negative 3 times negative 5x plus 4. That's a distributive property, so that's going to be positive 15x minus 12, like that. Then you're ready to subtract. Okay, what would happen if you subtracted these numbers on this problem? They're the same. You get 0, right? So you can change the signs if you want to. That cancels, and gives 0. Okay, so that means the answer to this problem is going to be a quotient is negative 4x squared plus 4x minus 3, remainder 0. Okay, and I'm not going to check that, but you certainly could. You would just take the answer times negative 5x plus 4, and it would give you what's under the bar, like that. Okay, so I'm going to just let you go for it and see how you do. I'll walk around and help. Just do the next 2 problems, and let's see how they go. If you need to kind of do some scratch work at the side, just kind of do what I've been doing. You have a division step, a multiplication step, a subtraction step, and a bring down the next number step. And you're going to keep doing that over and over again until you're done. Okay? Well, when you get the first result, 3x, you gotta go 3x times x is 3x squared. And that would be negative 18x first. You want to just write negative 18x, then change the signs and then add the column. You gotta do that multiplication step, and multiply by both things. Too bad. Well, we're ready to multiply. So now you gotta go 5 times x is positive 5x, 5 times 6 is negative 30, and subtract to get you the number. We've already brought down all the numbers. So you gotta do the multiplication step, the subtraction step, and they're done. Get you the number. That's all that's there. So far, that's good. That's ready to start over again, do one more loop. We'll just multiply it out by both. 3x times x is 3x squared, 3x times negative 6 is negative 18x. If you want to put a negative 18x there, now you're ready to subtract. The bar, if you want to change that to minus plus, you can do that. And that way you can just add the column in between it. Okay? You made a mistake right there. That's correct. 3x times x is 3x squared, but 3x times negative 6 is negative 18x. Then you got to change the sign there. So you got an arithmetic mistake. Okay, so I think you got the first one okay. Okay, that's not quite right because see one of the x's crossed out. When you do this, you have x squared is x times x. So you get 3x goes there. Okay, so you want to record a 3x there. Now you want to multiply 3x times x, record it there. 3x times negative 6, record it there. And you do that multiplication step. Okay, I think we're okay. You can probably check them if you want to. I'm going to walk around one more time. So if you're done, I would recommend you try to check and see if you know that. So both of them are checkable. I think you got one too many steps on that one. If you did that, what happened is when you get the 3x there, when you multiply, you're going to have 3x squared minus 18x. See, 3 times 6, that would be minus 18x. That's throwing all your arithmetic. So you got to back up and kind of erase and get that fixed. So I think we're doing okay so far. If you want to try to check them, I think we're okay. The first one's pretty easy to just FOIL and see if it takes you to the beginning. Okay, I haven't worked them out, so I don't know. That looks like a pretty common answer out there. I mean, so as long as you've got all your arithmetic in there right, then you're probably going to be okay. All right, now be sure as you're doing this, you record things. Now that would be 4x to the second. Let's see, one of the x's cancels out. So that'd be 4x to the second. Then you want to do the multiplication. And see with this one, you got, so you got that okay. So keep going, okay. Now you're not recording the results of your division, because I mean, you got down to this point here, okay, and you do 15 divided by negative 5x, you got to record the result there, and so forth. And I think you also kind of left this one, you never did this one. Okay, so after you have subtracted, and you bring down the next number, you need to do this divided by this to get what goes there. Okay, you have to record stuff as you're going with that. Okay, now what do? You start over again with that divided by that. So now you're doing 5x divided by x, which is plus 5. Okay, I can do multiple steps on that as you go through it. So that's okay. Now that's just a 5, because
Yeah.
when you do 5x divided by x, one of the x's cancel out, so that gives 5. We have that. Okay, now one of the things you got to do on this, you just got to write everything out pretty methodically. Some of you are kind of forgetting to record stuff as you go, I notice, so that's kind of a problem. Okay, so let's see how we did. Okay, the first thing that you do on number 14 is you should do 3x to the second over x, and you don't want to mess up the first step because everything else falls apart. So that one of the x's crosses out, leaves you 3x. So I saw some people messing up on that. Next step is to take the 3x and multiply it by x minus 6. That's your distributive property. So you're going to have plus 3x to the second. Okay, then you're going to do 3x times negative 6 is negative 18x. I saw a lot of students make that mistake. Now you're ready to subtract. Subtraction, if you want to do this, I think students a lot of times do better. Just change the signs and add. That first column cancels. It should. Then negative 13 plus 18 is now going to be plus 5x. Then you bring down the minus 30 like that. Okay, that's one loop right there, and then you're ready to just basically start over again. I could tell some of you when you did one loop didn't know what to do next. You're now ready to take that divided by that. You have to start over again. You got to go back to the top and divide. So you do 5x divided by x, which is 5. And since it's a positive 5, you got to record that like that. Okay, now is your multiplication step. So now you go 5 times x minus 6, which is 5x minus 30. So I'm going to put plus 5x minus 30 like that. Well, the numbers are the same, so what does the remainder have to be? 0. Okay, so you are subtracting now. I just changed the signs and add, so that cancels. Negative 30 plus 30 goes to 0, so that means the answer you should have got is 3x plus 5 is the quotient, and the remainder is 0. Okay? All right, how did we do? Okay, takes practice to get everything right, and then the next problem, they're all the same. The next problem just has an extra loop through it like that. Okay? All right, let's see what we did on this one then. So first step on this one is to do this division. You're going to do negative 8x to the third divided by negative 2x. Okay, I saw several people mess up on this. You should get 4x to the second. And it's a positive too. I saw several people make that mistake because you're dividing two negatives. Okay, next step is you do 4x to the second times negative 2x plus 3. Right? Does everybody understand why that's 4x to the second? I saw a lot of people have a negative on that. Okay, now multiply. So that's going to be negative 8x to the third. Hey, it matched. Remember, it's supposed to. Then this is going to be plus 12x to the second like that. Now you're ready to subtract. Okay? And you can subtract in your head or you can change the signs. I don't care which way. That cancels. 18 minus 12 is going to give 6x to the second, then you bring down the negative 11x, and then you're ready to start over again. Okay, so that would be your first loop through the problem like that. Okay, now what do you divide? That by that. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to do 6x to the second divided by negative 2x, which is negative 3x. Now look how see how your exponents are going down in your answer? That's pretty typical. Second power, first power, then a number. You're going to have 3 loops on the problem. So now you're going to do negative 3x times negative 2x plus 3. That's going to give 6x to the second, which is the same, which is a good thing, times negative 9x like that. Okay, next step is to subtract. So I'm going to change that to minus and change that to plus. That'll cancel. Negative 11 plus 9 is going to be negative 2x. Then you're ready to bring down the 21, and you still got one more loop to go through. Okay? All right, so let's finish up this last loop here. So what are we going to divide? Negative 2x divided by negative 2. It's always the same. So what's negative 2x divided by negative 2x? 1. Okay, so we put a plus 1. Now we multiply. And you can multiply in your head. 1 times negative 2x is negative 2x. 1 times 3 is plus 3. Now you're ready to subtract and you're ready to get your remainder. So I'm going to change the signs and add. So what remainder did you guys get?
18.
Hopefully 18, because 21 minus 3 is 18. So that means the quotient would be 4x squared minus 3x plus 1 with a remainder of 18. Like that. Okay? Go ahead.
Can you write 18, or do you have to write 18 over?
It'll either way, it'll depend. When you're doing your homework on this, sometimes they're going to say, what's the quotient, what's the remainder? And I'm glad you asked that, because the answer, if I just wanted you to give me the answer to the problem, you would say 4x squared minus 3x plus 1 plus the remainder over the divisor. And you have to have that plus sign like that. So that's how you write the answer.
Okay.
And you need to write that down. Everybody needs to write that down so that you don't forget. There's going to be times on your homework where they ask for the quotient and remainder. That's all they ask for. But if they want you to just give the answer, that's really the way you write it, is like this. You say the quotient plus 18 over the divisor like that. That's it. That's your answer. Okay? Okay, so how'd we do? Okay, not bad. Okay, a lot of times I see students struggle with this if they had some issues in their background with long division. That's pretty common. Now I want to do 2 more things to finish up this section. I've taught you everything I need to teach you in the section, except one little detail basically. So we're going to look at this one. I'm actually going to do this problem in 2 ways. We're going to do this by long division first. Okay, now the thing is, when you have x squared minus 49, something is missing. Okay, what you always want to have is you always want to have a placeholder for every exponent. So like if you had a third power, you would want a second power, a first power, and then just a number. Okay, so this has got something missing. It's got an x to the second, but it doesn't have an x, it has a number. So if it does not have a term that it's supposed to, put a 0 there. So you want to put 0x there, then you want to do minus 7. Something's missing. Okay, you got to make sure you account for every position.
49 or negative 7?
What's that?
Negative 49.
Oh, 49, thank you. I'm looking at the wrong thing, aren't I? Okay, so we'd have minus 49 like that. Okay, if you had a third power, you would make sure you have a second, a first, and a number. Okay, now everything from here is all the same. Okay, now you just go for it, and it's all the same anyway, right? So the first thing you're going to do is the division step. So you're going to do x squared over x, which is what? X. Okay, so we record the x. Step 2 is to multiply. So you do x times x minus 7. That's going to be positive x squared minus 7x. So that's step 2, like we just got through doing. Step 3 is to subtract. I've been just kind of changing the signs and add. Okay, first column cancels, it always will. Second column is 7x. Then you're ready to bring down the 49. Okay, so that's your first loop through the problem. You got one more loop to go. Okay. right, now what I'm going to do is start over again with the next loop. So I'm going to do 7x divided by x. And you don't have to write this scratch work here, guys. I'm just trying to show you what I'm doing as I do it. But if you need to do that, then by all means do it. You know, a lot of you will do better if you just write this scratch work out. So that's plus 7. Then you're going to do 7 times x minus 7. You take the result and multiply. So that'll be 7x minus 49 like that. Okay, then you subtract. So I've been teaching you to change the signs and add. So what happens? What's your remainder? 0. Good. Okay. So you get a quotient of x plus 7 and a remainder of 0. The answer is just x plus 7. Okay, now let me show you another thing that you could do on this problem. And on your homework, I don't care if you do the problem this way. A lot of times students say, well, why can't we just do this way instead of long division? Well, it doesn't always work this way. Okay, we've already learned how to do this. How do you factor x squared minus 49? X plus 7, x minus 7. What happens? Same answer. So some of you are saying, why did I have to go through all that? Well, if you have a remainder of something other than 0, then you have to divide. If you have a remainder of 0, that works. Okay, so if you see something like that in your homework, I don't care if you do that. I would like a student to see that that's the easy way to do it, therefore I'm going to do it that way. But if you have a remainder, you got to divide. Okay, that's important. Okay, so let me do one more here, and then I'll let you do one, and then we'll do a break. That'll finish up a section. Okay, notice your highest power is third power, so you need to have an x to the second. Do you have an x to the second in this problem? No. Do you have an x?
Yes.
You do. Do you have a number after the 25x? No, so you better have a 0 there. You have to have placeholders. So you're going to say 36x to the third plus 0x to the second minus 25x. And yeah, you've got to have that plus 0 there because you've got to have a placeholder for everything. Okay? Then you're going to divide this by 6x minus 1. Does that make sense why I'm doing that? You'll get all missed. If you forget to do that, you'll believe me, you'll find that out as you're doing the problem because all the terms will get mixed up. Okay, so we're going to go through the step. Okay, so we're going to do 36x to the third divided by 6x. What's that? 6x squared. Okay, and then as you're practicing, then start trying to kind of do it all in your head so you don't have to do the scratch work. So now I'm going to multiply 6x times 6x is positive 36x to the third. That means I did it right. Okay, 6x to the second times negative 1 is negative 6x to the second. You can do that multiplication in your head if you want to. Okay, I just did 6x squared times 6x minus 1. Okay, now we're going to subtract, so I'm going to change the signs. I'm going to add. Okay, so the first column cancels out. The second column, 0 plus 6, is 6x squared. Then I'm ready to bring down the next number. So I've gone through one loop of the problem. What's next? You're ready to divide again. So the next thing you're going to do is 6x to the second divided by 6x. So what's the result of that division? X, okay, right? One of the x's crosses out, so you're going to record a plus x like that. Okay, now multiply. X times 6x is positive 6x to the second. X times negative 1 is negative 1x, or just negative x. Okay, now we're ready to subtract. So we change the signs. That'll cancel out. Negative 20, we're doing negative 25 plus 1, so that's negative 24x. And yeah, you got to bring down the 0. Okay, you got another thing to bring down, so bring it down. Okay, and then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to divide negative 24 by 6. So you got to do division one more time. So when I do negative 24 divided by 6x, what do you get? Negative 4. Do you guys see how the last term is always just a number? And do you see how the answers, the exponents, are going down? Second power, first power number. They always will. That's the pattern that you're going to find on the problems. Okay, now multiply. Negative 4 times 6 is negative 24x. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Okay, change the signs. So what is your remainder going to be?
4.
Negative 4. Okay, it's going to be negative 4. So you have an answer, a quotient of 6x squared plus x minus 4, and a remainder of negative 4, like that. Okay, now if you wanted to write the answer, I also want you guys just to write the answer out so that you don't forget how to do this. The answer you write is 6x squared plus x minus 4. Then you say minus 4, the remainder, over the divisor like that. That's how you write it. Okay, that minus should really be just in front of the fraction bar, kind of like this. That's how you write the answers, like that. Okay, answer, quotient, minus this over that. Okay, it's the same thing you learned in elementary school, I promise you. Okay. Okay, so what I'd like you guys to do, number 18, I want you to do it two ways, both ways, and we'll take a break. I want you to, first of all, do it by long division. Okay, and you're going to have x squared. You're going to have a missing x, so you need to add in that 0x minus 4. Do the long division, and then just do the factoring and see if you get the same answer. Okay? Now let's see if you're getting a little better at it. So let's do it the easy way first of all. So the easy way is to factor x and x, 2 and 2, plus a minus, that's the difference of 2 squares. So what'd you get, x minus 2 or x plus 2?
Minus.
X minus 2, okay, that's better, okay? All right, so if you see that you can do the problem that way on your homework, like I said, I don't care. Okay, let's do the long division way. So you would do x squared divided by x is the first thing. So that would leave you the x. Then you multiply. So x times x is positive x squared. X times positive 2 is positive 2x. Now you're ready to change the signs because you're subtracting. Okay, that cancels. You guys catching on to that always cancels? If you don't, you've messed up, okay? 0 minus 2 is negative 2x. Then bring down the minus 4. Okay, now the last division is going to be negative 2x divided by x. So what's that? Minus 2, okay? Then multiply, so negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4. And then if any time you have the same thing, the remainder is going to be 0. Okay, you don't even have to show the step if you don't want to. So you get a remainder of 0. So the answer of the problem is the quotient is x minus 2, the remainder is 0, like that. Okay, how would you check this problem until it's right? You take this and you multiply it by what? By this. Okay, if you do that with the FOIL, you would get x squared minus 4. Okay, if you go through the details, that's what you would get. Okay, okay, any questions about that? Okay, now long division, like anything else, you've got to practice it and work on it a little bit.